When Elira Voss received an unexpected call from her estranged mother inviting her and her young son on a luxurious family cruise, she hesitated. Years of silence, cold judgment, and betrayal had built a wall too high to ignore. But something in her mother's voice, almost desperation, pushed her to say yes. What Elira didn't know was that the cruise wasn't meant to heal old wounds. It was designed to erase her completely. There is one detail that only the attentive notice. Did you notice? Subscribe. It will help us make content that you will watch. Elira Voss stared through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office in downtown San Francisco. The sun was dipping behind the hills, casting a burnt orange hue across the skyline. She had seen this view hundreds of times, yet tonight it felt ominously unfamiliar. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Elira Voss, she answered with practiced calm. Elira, it's me, came a voice she hadn't heard in almost a year. Her spine straightened. Mother? Rhaenyra Voss wasn't known for warm calls. Contact with her parents usually came in the form of clipped messages, critical comments, or legal documents related to the family trust. I wanted to speak with you. Your father and I, along with Lysandra, are planning a short family voyage. A cruise. We'd like you and Cale to join us. Elira froze. The idea of vacationing with Hadrian and Rhaenyra Voss was laughable, if it weren't so unsettling. After all, these were the people who had publicly criticized her divorce, called her career a fancy distraction, and dismissed her son as the consequence of a reckless decision. Why? She asked cautiously. Your father has been thinking about you. He talks about Cale, too. He misses you. A silence followed. Elira's mind screamed trap. Her father didn't miss people. He acquired, discarded, or disapproved of them. But Rhaenyra's voice held something else this time. Not warmth, but weariness. When? Elira asked. This weekend. 5 days. We'll leave from Florida. You'll fly in Thursday, and we'll board the Meridian Friday morning. Ah, the Meridian. The Voss family's pride, a $40 million custom-designed mega-yacht that was longer than most commercial planes. Elira had seen it only in glossy photos and tabloids. I'll think about it, she said, hanging up. She turned back to the window, but the view now felt claustrophobic. That evening, Cale was sprawled across the living room rug, constructing a spaceship out of magnetic blocks. Maria, the nanny, was sorting laundry. Elira sat beside her 6-year-old and ran a hand through his soft curls. Cale, she said gently, would you like to go on a boat? A big one, with Grandma and Grandpa. Kyle lit up. A real boat? Like the one from the Science Museum? Yes, even bigger. He bounced in place. Can we see dolphins? We just might, she smiled, masking the tightness in her chest. The port of Palm Beach glistened under the morning sun. The Meridian loomed like a floating mansion, sleek, dark-hulled, and intimidating. Hadrian and Rhaenyra stood at the top of the gangway like royalty. Elira! Rhaenyra called with open arms, shocking her daughter. And Cale, how you've grown! Hadrian gave an equally unexpected smile. You came. Lysandra stood a few feet behind them, her lips tight, eyes hidden behind designer sunglasses. Hey, sis, she said, voice cool as dry ice. Lysandra, Elira returned politely. The first 2 days felt strange. Hadrian asked questions about Elira's investment portfolio. Rhaenyra spent hours with Cale, teaching him about maritime history and constellations. Even Lysandra, usually distant and combative, offered a few jokes over dinner. But the calm unsettled Elira more than hostility would have. Something was off. On the third evening, Hadrian summoned her to the private study. Elira, I'm not well. She studied his face. The lines had deepened, the sharpness dulled. but illness. She couldn't tell if it was truth or performance. "I've spoken with lawyers," he continued. "Lysandra has cemented her role in the company. But you've carved your own path. And Cale, he deserves protection. I intend to leave the majority of my estate to you and your son." The words knocked the air from her lungs. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just think about your future. The Voss legacy doesn't have to end with corporate bloodlines." She returned to her cabin, unable to sleep. Cale was curled up beside her, clutching his favorite plush fox. Her mind raced. Hadrian had never acknowledged her worth, not when she won investment awards, not when she survived a brutal divorce. Why now? Why this trip? She wanted to believe he'd changed, that he wanted to build bridges before the end. But when morning came, doubt clung to her like humidity. On the upper deck, the sea shimmered like polished glass. Elira sipped coffee and watched Cale run around with boundless energy. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" Lysandra appeared beside her, unusually cheerful. Elira turned slowly. "Yes, very. What did you and Dad talk about last night?" "His health. He said he's not well." Lysandra nodded, eyes on the horizon. "Anything else?" "Not really." A lie. But something in Lysandra's tone told her honesty would be dangerous. "Oh." Lysandra's smile grew wider, but didn't reach her eyes. "He's been reflecting a lot lately. Must be nice to finally get Daddy's attention." Elira stiffened. "You always had the spotlight," Lysandra said with a casual shrug. "I had to build myself in his shadow, but that's fine. I've made my peace. I never wanted to compete." "Of course you didn't," Lysandra replied smoothly. "You just always won." That afternoon, Rhaenyra offered to bake cookies with Cale in the Yacht's gourmet kitchen. Elira hesitated, but Cale's eyes sparkled. "Can I, Mom?" "Please?" "Okay," she relented. "Just for a while." She watched them disappear into the galley, a tightness gripping her ribs. Something about Lysandra's words and her father's inheritance speech wouldn't let go, and when she returned to her cabin to check her phone, she noticed an alert. A background sync had failed. Her location-sharing app had been disabled. Her fingers trembled slightly. This wasn't a family trip, this was a setup. The aroma of melted chocolate drifted through the hallway as Elira made her way toward the galley. Her instincts were screaming, and she had learned the hard way never to ignore them. When she stepped inside, Cale was at the counter, staring uncertainly at a steaming mug. Rhaenyra stood behind him, her expression serene. "Elira," her mother said with an unconvincing smile, "I made Cale a special hot chocolate. He didn't like the first one. It was too bitter. I was just tweaking the recipe." "Mommy," Cale said, turning to her with a frown, "Grandma gave me a weird drink. It tasted bad." Elira walked forward quickly and placed herself between her mother and her son. "We'll pass on the hot chocolate," she said coolly. "Cale, come with me." "But we just started," Rhaenyra began. "I said no." Her voice was firm, final. She took Cale's hand and led him out, heart pounding. Her mother didn't protest, but Elira didn't miss the way Rhaenyra's eyes narrowed ever so slightly. Back in their stateroom, Elira locked the door and fell to her knees, inspecting Cale closely. "Do you feel sick? Dizzy? Anything?" Cale shook his head. "No, Mommy. I didn't drink it. I pretended to sip but spit it in the sink." Relief washed over her so hard she nearly cried. "You're a very smart boy," she whispered, pulling him into her arms. "You did exactly the right thing." Now she was sure. Something deeply sinister was at play. Her father's inheritance talk, Lysandra's cryptic bitterness, Rhaenyra's push for alone time with Cale. It was all part of something orchestrated. She opened her phone and reactivated the emergency app, setting up geolocation alerts, direct Coast Guard contact, and auto-recording functions. Then she packed a small waterproof bag with passports, cash, and a backup charger. A slim life jacket was folded into Cale's backpack, just in case. She wasn't running, yet, but she was preparing. The next morning, she barely slept. Every creak of the ship felt like a warning. Kyle lay beside her, breathing peacefully. At 6 a.m., the ship was 2 hours from its next port. Elira's plan was to disembark under the pretense of a personal emergency, then vanish. She dressed Cale in a windbreaker despite the heat and zipped the hidden life jacket into his backpack. "Why am I wearing a jacket? It's warm." "It might get cooler later," she said gently, placing a kiss on his forehead. "Just trust Mommy, okay?" He nodded. Before leaving the room, Elira opened the voice recording app and set her phone to start capturing everything. The device was inside a sealed, waterproof case clipped to her belt. There was a knock. "Elira?" her father's voice. "Join us on the upper deck. Breakfast. The view is incredible this morning." Elira's gut screamed, "Don't go." But if she refused, they'd know. She needed time. She needed the illusion of compliance. "All right," she called back. "Give me a minute." The upper deck was prepared like a royal brunch. An elegant table was draped in ivory linen, silver trays glinting with eggs, fruits, pastries, and juices. Rhaenyra greeted them with warm cheer. "Cale! Good morning! Come sit beside me. I have something special for you." Elira kept Cale close. "He'll sit by me, thanks." Hadrian gestured to a seat beside him. "Sit, Elira. Let's enjoy this last breakfast together." "Last?" She forced herself to smile, noting Lysandra watching her too intently across the table. "You're not eating?" Lysandra asked, delicately spearing a strawberry. "I'm not hungry yet," Elira replied. "Cale, here, have this orange I peeled." He took it, already chewing, unaware of the tension vibrating through his mother's spine. The conversation flowed with artificial ease. Hadrian spoke about expansion projects. Rhaenyra gushed about Europe. Lysandra complimented Cale's drawings. But beneath it all, Elira felt it. The pressure of something brewing, something timed. Then Hadrian stood. "Look," he said, pointing over the railing. "Dolphins, just off the port side." Kyle sprang up. "Where? I want to see." Elira stood with him, wary. Rhaenyra and Lysandra stood too, flanking her. She looked where Hadrian pointed. The sea was empty. She turned. That's when she saw it. Rhaenyra's expression had gone blank, almost mechanical. "You don't belong in this family," she said quietly. "You never did." Lysandra added softly, "You should have stayed away." And then, hands, pushing. Elira's body lurched as she instinctively gripped Cale and twisted. She felt the deck drop away and the wind slap her face, and then icy blue water swallowed them whole. The plunge into the sea knocked the breath from her lungs, but instincts kicked in. Swim, hold Cale above water, kick hard, don't panic. Cale screamed as they surfaced, sputtering. "I've got you!" she yelled. "Hold on, baby! Mommy's got you!" She spotted something, a life ring floating nearby. Whether thrown by mistake or part of the setup, she didn't know, but she used it. She hauled Cale onto the ring and kicked to keep them afloat. The yacht was already drifting away. No one was looking over the edge. No alarm had been raised. No one was coming back. But her phone, blessed technology, was still secure in its case, still recording, still broadcasting GPS coordinates to the Coast Guard. She held Cale close. "We're okay. We're alive. And we're going to stay that way." The water was warm, the sea calm. They floated in eerie silence, alone in the vast blue, clinging to each other. And somewhere above, on that monstrous ship, her family thought they had succeeded. They had no idea the real plan had just begun. For the next 2 hours, Elira held Cale close, legs churning slowly beneath the waves. The sun climbed higher, its rays biting into her shoulders. Her limbs ached. Every minute felt like an hour. But she never let go. Cale was shivering against her chest, whispering, "I'm scared, Mommy." "I know," she said softly, "but you're so brave, and help is coming." She reached down and double-checked the waterproof case. Her phone's blinking green light indicated the GPS beacon was still active. The audio recorder continued to capture the lapping waves, the rustle of Cale's windbreaker, and Elira's whispered reassurances. She had made sure before the trip to install the Guardian Echo app, a secure emergency tool used by solo hikers and parents in crisis zones. It activated automatic cloud uploads when triggered. Right now, everything was being stored on a secure server. The world didn't know yet, but it would. And then she heard it. A sound cutting across the horizon. Blades, rotating. A helicopter. "Cale!" she gasped, shifting in the water. "Look up!" From the distance, a Coast Guard chopper skimmed low across the sea, sun flashing against its red and white paint. The vibration reached them before the sound truly did. "This is Echo 9, visual on 2 survivors. Preparing descent," a voice crackled through the crew's headset. Elira waved both arms, careful not to tip the life ring. Cale clung to her neck, half crying, half laughing. Moments later, a rescue diver hit the water and reached them in swift strokes. "Ma'am, we've got you," he said calmly. "You're safe now." "No," she gasped. "We were pushed. It wasn't an accident. I have proof." The diver didn't ask questions. He simply nodded. They strapped a flotation harness onto Cale and hoisted him first. Elira followed, fingers frozen, breath ragged. As she rose above the sea, seeing the vast emptiness around them, something primal broke inside her. Not fear, not anger. Resolve. They thought she was gone. Now she would show the world she wasn't. The hospital in Nassau was small but clean. Elira was treated for dehydration, Cale for mild hypothermia. A nurse brought them warm blankets and crackers, while a young officer from the Bahamian police asked careful questions. She handed over her phone. "There's a video. From the moment they pushed us. It's on here, and already in cloud storage." The officer watched part of the footage. His jaw tightened. "I need to notify Interpol and U.S. authorities immediately," he said. "Please do. And one more thing," Elira added. "I want the truth public, now." She connected to the hospital's Wi-Fi, opened her social media profile, one she rarely used, and hit Go Live. The world watched as a waterlogged woman with salt-streaked hair looked straight into the camera and said, "My name is Elira Voss. My family just tried to murder me and my 6-year-old son. We were thrown overboard during a private yacht trip, but we survived, and here's the proof." She uploaded a portion of the video showing blurred yet distinct figures, Rhaenyra, Lysandra, and Hadrian, guiding her toward the railing, and the moment she was shoved backward with Cale in her arms. By the time she ended the stream, her phone was exploding with notifications. Journalists, advocates, victims of family abuse, even strangers. The story, heiress thrown overboard by her own family, spread like wildfire. 2,000 miles away, Hadrian, Rhaenyra, and Lysandra were reclining aboard a private jet bound for Atlanta. "It went perfectly," Hadrian said, sipping a glass of brandy. "We'll file the missing persons report tomorrow, maybe cry a bit." "By next month, the trust assets transfer to us," Lysandra added. "No more interference," Rhaenyra said calmly. That girl was always a deviation. None of them noticed the flurry of messages on their paused devices. Not until they landed. A black SUV met them at the airstrip, standard protocol, or so they thought. Inside, two plainclothes officers waited. "Hadrian Voss, Rhaenyra Voss, Lysandra Voss," one said, holding up a badge. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted homicide of a minor." "What?" Hadrian roared. Rhaenyra's face paled to porcelain. "You can't be serious," Lysandra hissed. There's a video," the officer interrupted. "The whole world has seen it." Back in the hospital, Illyra sat beside Cale's bed, brushing hair from his forehead as he finally slept, safe for the first time in days. Her phone chimed. A message from the FBI liaison. "The suspects are in custody, charges being processed. You did everything right." She looked at the screen for a long time before replying. "This is only the beginning." The media storm hit like a tidal wave. By morning, Illyra Voss was trending worldwide. News anchors scrambled to analyze the video, debate motivations, and interview psychologists about wealth-driven family violence. Hashtags like #TruckSurvivorAtSea and Justice for Cale surged on every platform. A CNN headline read, "Heiress survives attempted murder by own family. Footage goes viral." Journalists dug deep into the Voss family empire, unearthing decades of lawsuits, boardroom scandals, and power plays. What had once been admired as a legacy dynasty now reeked of corruption and cruelty. Illyra, still recovering in Nassau, declined interviews, but her live-streamed follow-up message only added fuel to the fire. "I'm not going to hide," she told the camera. "For years, I endured silence, coldness, manipulation. But they crossed a line when they targeted my son. I survived because I prepared, but also because I knew I wasn't crazy to be afraid." To everyone who's ever been told family comes first, even when that family is toxic, this is for you. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to protect yourself and your children. Within 24 hours, her post was shared over 12 million times. Hadrian, Rhaenyra, and Lysandra were flown back to the U.S. under high-security escort and held without bail. The footage was so damning that even the best legal defense couldn't downplay the attempt. But the worst part wasn't the video. It was the paper trail. Prosecutors unearthed a string of recently altered legal documents, hidden trusts, and a digital forensics report showing Hadrian had already prepared the paperwork to seize Illyra's investments upon her accidental death. One of his emails, casually forwarded to Lysandra, read, "If she falls overboard, all we need is a little grief performance. The rest takes care of itself." The courtroom would need no more than that. 3 weeks later, Illyra stood in front of the federal courthouse in Atlanta, flanked by her attorney and a counselor assigned to Cale. She hadn't yet brought him to court. He was still too young, too raw. But he was doing better. He was sleeping through the night, smiling again. Inside the courthouse, a sea of reporters waited. The hallway echoed with camera shutters and whispered theories. Illyra walked past them all with quiet resolve. In the courtroom, Hadrian sat stone-faced. Rhaenyra's usually flawless appearance was cracked by stress, lips tight with disdain. Lysandra refused to look anywhere but the floor. None of them spoke. Illyra gave her testimony clearly and without embellishment. "My father called me to that boat under the guise of reconciliation. He told me he was dying, that he wanted to reconnect, that he was leaving his legacy to me and my son." She paused. "But it was a lie. The whole trip was a setup. They tried to murder me, to make it look like an accident, and take everything." Her voice didn't shake. When the judge adjourned for the day, her lawyer leaned over. "We've got them cold," he whispered. "Jury selection starts Monday, but they won't risk trial. The evidence is overwhelming." He was right. By the end of the week, a plea deal was reached. 25 years in federal prison for each of the 3 conspirators. No parole. The courtroom was packed when Judge Marla L. Shepard handed down the sentence. "Hadrian Voss, Rhaenyra Voss? Lysandra Voss? You stand convicted of one of the most calculated and disturbing betrayals this court has ever seen. The law cannot repair what you tried to destroy, but it will hold you accountable. The gavel struck. It was done. After the sentencing, Illyra didn't celebrate. Instead, she walked quietly outside into the Atlanta air. It was crisp. Golden sunlight streamed between buildings like cautious hope. She called Kyle on a secure line. Maria answered first. "He's okay," she said warmly. "He's painting rockets." Illyra smiled. "Tell him I'll be home soon, and that Mommy kept her promise." Over the next 3 months, she focused on healing, not just for Kale, but for others. Using part of her reclaimed inheritance, Illyra launched a non-profit organization, Anchor Line, a legal and mental health support network for survivors of family-based abuse. Her first public talk was streamed live to over 800,000 viewers. "Family should never be the reason you suffer in silence," she said, standing beneath the simple logo. "A lifeline looped through a stormy sea. You deserve safety. You deserve peace. And if you ever feel like you're drowning, reach. Someone will be there." One afternoon, a woman in her 50s approached Illyra after a community seminar. "You don't know me," the woman said, eyes brimming with emotion, "but I watched your video. It gave me the courage to leave my brother's house. He wasn't right. I finally moved out. I started over. Thank you." Illyra didn't speak. She just hugged her. That, she realized, was the real legacy. Not money, not companies. Hope. A full year had passed since Illyra and Kale were thrown into the Caribbean Sea, left for dead by the people who should have protected them. But that moment had not been their end. It had been their beginning. Illyra sat on a wooden bench in Golden Leaf Park, just a short walk from their new home in Boulder, Colorado. Kale ran across the grass, his laughter echoing between the pines, chasing 2 other kids as they flew paper kites in the spring wind. He was healing, slowly, steadily. So was she. Their new home wasn't large. No servants, no marble columns, but it was theirs, full of light, warmth, and peace. A painting Kyle had made hung in the hallway, 2 stick figures holding hands on a blue ocean under a yellow sun. Sometimes the memories returned without warning. Cold water, hands pushing, the silent betrayal in Lysandra's eyes. But she never let them root. Instead, she redirected her pain into building something lasting. Anchor Line had grown faster than she'd imagined. It began as a simple legal fund and trauma support service, but within months, chapters were opening across the country. Survivors came forward, some silently, others loudly. People from every background, culture, and status. Family abuse, she'd learned, wore many disguises, but so did survival. Illyra became a quiet symbol, not of victimhood, but of resistance, not of revenge, but justice. The footage from that morning on the yacht became part of a nationally accredited training program for first responders. Universities invited her to speak. High schools screened edited versions of her story during wellness weeks. Even Congress cited her nonprofit's data during discussions of domestic protection laws. But none of that compared to the quiet wins. Letters like, "Your story saved my daughter," or, "I finally left my abuser after 10 years. I'm free. Thank you." She kept those in a box labeled anchor stones. When the weight of her memories felt too much, she read one, and remembered why she had survived. One breezy April afternoon, a letter arrived in a simple beige envelope. No return address. Inside was a single page, handwritten. "Illyra, if this reaches you, I know it is undeserved, but I ask that you read it anyway. I'm dying. For real this time. Heart failure. The irony is not lost on me. I wanted power, legacy, control. And in that pursuit, I destroyed everything. I used my illness as a lie. and now it's a truth I can't outmaneuver. You were always stronger than me. You saw through the rot in our empire. I hated that about you. But I see now it's what saved you. And Kale. Don't forgive me. I wouldn't. But I wanted to say it before the end. I'm sorry. Hadrian. Elira folded the letter slowly, her fingers trembling. Not from anger, but a strange relief. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She placed the page in the anchor stones box and went outside. Kyle was building a wooden fort with his friends near the tree line. When he saw her, he waved. Mom, look what I built! She walked over and knelt beside him. It's amazing, she said, admiring the miniature structure. You're really good at making new things. Kale grinned. You too. You built our new house, and your office, an anchor line. She ruffled his hair. We built it together. Later that summer, Elira spoke at a United Nations panel on family-based violence. Her voice was calm, steady, unwavering. Family is not defined by blood. It is defined by choice, by protection, by love. The people who stand with you when no one else does. That is family. Her words were translated into 9 languages. Her story, once nearly erased at sea, was now reshaping lives across the globe. One quiet evening, Kale brought her a drawing. It's us, he explained, but with more people. The picture showed a circle of figures holding hands. Kyle, Elira, Maria, their new neighbors, 2 volunteers from Anchor Line, even the golden retriever from across the street. What's this one called? She asked. He beamed. The real family. Elira looked up at the sky, deep and endless like the sea that once threatened to take everything from her. But it hadn't. She had chosen to live, to fight, to rebuild, and now she knew something she hadn't known in years. They were safe, they were free, they were home.